Okay, we're looking at December of 2011, PrepTest 65. This is logic game 1. A professor must determine the order in which 5 of her students, F, G, H, J, and K, will perform in an upcoming piano recital. Each student performs one piece and no 2 performances overlap. Okay, so right now we know that each student plays one time, they don't overlap, and there are 5 students. So we strongly suspect that we're in a sequential game that doesn't have any grouping aspects. And grouping aspects might be they played on different colored pianos. So there was a sequence and then a color to the piano. That would be the grouping aspect to the game. Let's continue. The following constraints apply. G must perform earlier than F. So G is earlier than F. K must perform earlier than H and J, so K is before H and J. And then H must perform either immediately before or immediately after F. Okay, so we've confirmed here that we don't have any grouping aspects. Okay, there are only 5 variables, so we should be looking at solving the scenarios, and we're just looking for first order rules, second order rules, third order rules, so on and so forth. And recall that a first order rule is just a rule that says, hey, this variable goes in this particular spot. We don't have that, but we do have this. We have a second order rule here. And then we know that H and F have to be next to each other. Then it's just a matter of where can they actually go. So if we look at what we've got here with these third order rules, and remember third order rules in sequential games are just rules that say, hey, something goes before something else. We know that G, okay, is before F and H. Okay, and I'm going to put a parenthesis saying they can go in any order. We also know that K has to occur before H, so we can look at it like this. Okay, so we know that both G and K have to actually occur before F and H. And then we have J, which is, we just know that, we know that J has to occur before K, but we don't know anything else with that. So we ask ourselves in this situation, who do we know that has to occur before G and K, before F and H? And it's G and K. So that means the earliest that F and H could go would either be, would be 3rd and 4th. And then that means that F and H are available to go 4th and 5th. So all we need to do is just kind of break it out a little bit and see what happens. If we have F and H like this, again, I'm going to put a parentheses around them to show that they can go in any order. And then we have this. And that, again, shows that they can go in any order. So now let's just take a look at what we've got. Well, we know that K has to occur before J. And G has to occur. We know that G and K have to occur before F and H. So in this situation, it's pretty simple. Okay, and then we know that J would go here. And this is just a distribution technique that I would use. Well, I know that J, for example, cannot go first because K has to go before it. So I could just say this. Okay, that's all that J can do. And then if I'm left with that, I know that it has to be this. And then again, we're back to this. Okay, and this game is wholly solved. We do have some strange things going on here. And another thing is, with the parentheses like this, you can also say this like that. Or you can keep them in parentheses. You just need to remember, if you have them in parentheses, to know what that means. But either way is fine. And normally I don't like 2 sets of options. I could break this apart, for example. You could do this if you wanted to just be particularly thorough with this game. And then we kind of keep it just to one option, which is a little bit easier to see. And then we could do the same thing here. Okay, that's pretty much fleshing it out all the way. You would not need to go any further than this. One set of options is fine. Okay, the thing that you should have known, okay, before you did anything, and again, we had this at 3, I've opened it up to 5, you could have just actually set, as long as you knew this, as long as you made this deduction, where F and H can actually occur, then you're doing fine, even if you would have built 2 and then moved forward. For me, once I built 2, I'm just saying, hey, there's 3 other variables, let me slap it together. Personally, I just worked this game, I just seen it, I just got a hold of it, and it took me about 4 minutes to answer all the questions and solve this game outright. So again, I've probably gone through it a little bit, too much or over, I wouldn't have actually done this was I taking the test, taking the time to explain all this, but you can get down to here. I believe I stopped at 3. I made 3, and I didn't flesh out the second set of options. What I mean when I say that you really want to kind of try to avoid making 2 sets of options is it becomes very difficult to see it. You have to be very skilled at reading your template to understand what can happen. When you break it down to just 1, it's much easier because you're just saying, it's either FH or HF. You're not saying it's either GK or KG and FH or HF. It can become difficult if you, especially if you get, mentally exhausted. So however you want to do it, there's no exact way to do this, but it's an art form, okay? All right, so let's go to the questions. Which one of the following could be the order from first to last in which the students perform? Okay, so we know that this is a list question, and we typically will always get questions like this. And what we want to do is go through our rules and eliminate incorrect answer choice, and the last answer choice standing is obviously the correct answer. So, one thing I really don't just say a lot, when I read the setup and the rules, I definitely write the rules here. I don't do anything with them, and here I had to take one extra step to kind of see what they did to figure out what F and H could do, to figure out where they could be applied. This is the only time that I should be looking back at my rules with regard to, you look at the rules only one time and you place them here. When I do the list question, this is actually the only time that I should be going back to take a look at the rules. Doesn't mean that I won't take a look at the rules more than once, but by the time I transpose these, I should not have to go back and look at them ever again, but for the very first question. Okay, so if we look at the first rule, it says G must occur before F, and if you go down to E, we have G occurring after F, so E is out. The second rule says K has to occur before both H and J, and if you look at A, K is not performing before A, H is performing before K, and if you look at B, J is performing before K, so A and B are out. We're just left with C and D. Again, I'm not looking at A and B anymore. I'm not looking at E. I'm just focused on C and D. The third rule says I need F and H next to each other, whichever order. And if you look at C, I do not have F and H next to each other. C's out. That leaves just D as the correct answer to the question. Okay, 2, if J performs earlier than G, which one of the following could be true? Okay, well, where do we have that happening? I have it happening, J is performing before G right here. Which one of the following could be true? If you look at A, F goes fourth, absolutely, that could occur right here. Now, the advantage of having this is that you can actually go through every answer choice. If you didn't create this and you're just kind of trying to work through the problem, the disadvantage there is you would need to stop at this point and then go to the next question. This is why I always am a proponent of trying to build things out as much as possible so that it gives us the luxury of looking at B saying G goes before, goes second, and no, J would have to go second. Again, this is the only place that G is actually before, that J is before G if you look at all our scenarios. So we know that J would have to go second. C, H is third. Well, no, G has to be third. D, J performs third. Well, no, we know that J has to go second. And then lastly, E, K performs second. No, we know that K has to go first. So we've proven that A is the correct answer to the question. Let's look at 3. Which one of the following cannot be true? F performs immediately before J, And if you look right here, we could have F performing immediately before J, so that could be true. Let's look at B. G performs immediately before H. That could happen here. Let's look at the next one. H performs immediately before G. Let's take a look. No, that cannot happen. If you look G, H, G is before H. H is actually never before G in this. And if you were just made this, you could see that H is never before G. Again, I prefer you to be in this situation. So we know that C is the answer, but let's look at D. J is immediately before G. That can happen right here in this scenario. And then the last one, K is immediately before H, and that can happen in this scenario. So we've proven that C is the correct answer to the question. It's kind of ironic. The only time that, or the time that you most need to look through everything is when you don't actually have this. When you have something like this, it's almost like you really need to look through all the answer choices, but there's simply not enough time. That's the issue that you run into. So we're always trying to fight, between having something kind of open-ended and then solving something out. And with this, we can look through everything, which is a great thing, because it's so quick. But it's almost like when this is built correctly, you really don't need to. But it's always great in logic games when you solve it and you prove to yourself that you have the correct answer. Okay, 4, the order in which the students perform is fully determined if which one of the following is true. Okay, so from right here we have, if we look at this, we have this set, and then we have, lastly, well, no, we have 2 and 3, okay? So we don't really have a lot to go on as far as we have 2 different way that this went. F and H just moved over. So we kind of need to look intuitively at this question to see what actually happens. And so let's look at A. F performs immediately before H. Well, if F performed immediately before H, 2 things, at least 2 things could happen, and actually another 3 things. So that is irrelevant. That does not mean anything. So A would fall out. Let's look at B. G performs immediately before F. Okay, well, where can that happen? If G were to perform immediately before F, it could happen here, and it could also happen here. So if G performs immediately before F, we don't know. We haven't determined everything that can happen. Actually, 2 different things can happen. So that falls out. Let's look at C. H performs immediately before J. Well, we could have it here and here. So once I have this situation happening more than once, I'm done. I can move to the next one because that cannot be the answer. Let's look at D. J performs immediately before H. Well, it can happen here and here. We could have J and H, and then the G and K could flip. So that's not the answer to the question. Then let's look at E. K performs immediately before F. Well, let's just ask ourselves, where is the only time that K could go before F, and it's here? So there's only one thing that can happen. Therefore, if K is performed immediately before F, everything else must fall into place, specifically G, K, F, H, and J. So we know for a fact that E is the correct answer to the question. And then 5, how many of the students are there, any one of whom could perform fourth? So if we just look fourth, right, it's either F or H. It cannot be anybody else. As such, the correct answer to the question is B, which is 2. Okay, that concludes Logic Game 1, Prep Test 65, December of 2011.